India criticized developed countries for failing to meet their climate finance obligations. Speaking on behalf of the like-minded developing countries at the third high-level ministerial dialogue on climate finance at COP30 in Brazil's Belém, India said climate finance is a critical enabler of climate action in developing countries. India's negotiator Suman Chandra emphasized the critical need for predictable, transparent financial assistance from developed countries to enable developing nations to meet their nationally determined contributions. India made it clear that the climate transition in the global south is being held back by broken promises. India's remarks highlighted the legal obligations set out by the Paris Agreement that developed nations have yet to fulfill. India specifically pointed out inadequacies in the new collective quantified goal revealed at COP29 and called for substantial, consistent financial support from wealthier nations. At this year's climate conference, developing countries have demanded that Article 9.1 be included on the official agenda for formal negotiations. The national determined contributions are national climate plans under the Paris Agreement that set targets to cut emissions and adapt to climate change, guiding global efforts to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. DD India's Akshay Dongre joins us for more on this story. Akshay, just a few global north countries who are actually derailing oil and gas phase out since Paris Agreement. One thing is to be failing to meet the targets and the other is to actually increase coal and gas production. So why is the global north not on the table when it comes to climate negotiations?
Well, Tanvi, it's the same as we have seen in many of the examples where the nations of the developed world, the Western nations, and as we now call them, many of the nations of the global north, have failed to meet their obligations towards the global south as far as the climate action is concerned. Now, the reason for this demand by the global south has historically been because of certain reasons that the global north developed using the traditional fuels, the fossil fuels that have in fact accelerated, climate crisis that is mostly impacting the global south countries. Now, after the effects were evident on the climate of burning these fossil fuels, there was a change towards adapting more green technologies as far as energy efficiency is concerned. But those technologies require a lot of money, research and development, expertise of scientists, and that was essentially held by the global north because those were the countries that developed first, and those were the countries that actually accelerated climate action, and the most of the burden is being borne by the global south countries. So the demand was that the countries that have developed using these fossil fuels, who are now asking the world to stop using them, should share technology for this transition to green energy, that the technology that they are holding, the means that are required for this transition, so that the world can limit the target of about 1.5 degrees Celsius as far as warming is concerned. But all that is going to require a lot of money. The global south countries are already developing. They do not have the means to make this transition on their own, and the countries that are developed have an obligation because they were the first movers in this field to share the technology as well as the resources for this transition required. And mere diktats and demands to transition will not work. That was agreed upon, and certain budget is being set for the global north to share with the global south countries as far as this transition is concerned in various fields, including health, including energy transition and other ways as well, that also include research and development. So it's the obligation as well as the legal obligation for these countries to share it. And since there has been consistent delays by these developed countries in transferring those funds to the countries, there is a roadblock in this transition that is required by the global south countries that are now developing, including countries like India, including countries of Africa, of countries of Caribbean. These are the countries that do need this money for energy, securing their energy supplies, as well as making the transition into green energy, so that the world can be defended against the climate crisis, that is pretty much evident and is going to impact the global south the most. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Akshay, for all those details. Thank you for joining us.